Welcome everyone to a new episode of the Roscoe's Wetsuit Neuro podcast. I'm joined by a very special guest. We have M. Curtis McCoy on the show today. He is an American entrepreneur, influencer, and keynote speaker. He's the author of books on leadership, personal branding, communication, and personal development. So Curtis has actually been through quite a lot in his life. He survived brain cancer. His family took him to Tijuana, Mexico to pursue alternative treatments that were not approved for use in the United States. He was uncertain of whether he would survive or not, but inspired to make a difference in as many lives as possible with the time that he had left. Over the years, he began contacting leaders he admired and asking questions. And his book, How to Be Successful, Think Like a Leader, is a compilation of true stories and conversations that he had in his fight to stay uplifted and inspired as he fought for his life. Curtis, welcome to the show.
Man, thanks so much. I appreciate that intro. You made me sound like a rock star.
Well, I didn't have to try too hard, man. It's quite a story. Just reading your bio, I was super intrigued. Tell me a little about, I guess, kind of the journey of what originally, kind of how did you originally find out that something was sort of wrong with your health?
So that was kind of a crazy thing. You know, a lot of people, you get cancer and you get sick and start, you just go to the doctor and figure it out pretty quick. I was diagnosed with diabetes, type 1 diabetes at 27 months old. And so my whole life I've had, if my blood sugar got too low, I'd have a seizure. It got worse and worse, where pretty soon I was, having 7 to 10 grand mal seizures a week. And I was running a few different businesses up in Denver. I owned a Christian clothing company and a nutritional supplement company and a pharmaceutical company and a cosmetic medical laser franchise. So super busy. And I started, I'd be walking down the street and pass out and have a seizure. Or we sponsored an event at the Denver Coliseum one day, an MMA fight, and, thousands and thousands of people there. I'm the event sponsor, and I had Andy Hammond, IFBB pro bodybuilder there, doing tore his shirt off and doing the whole promo thing for my supplement company, and passed out and had a big seizure, banging my face on the concrete, and it was just kind of I didn't realize that was even a problem. I was just going, I figured my diabetes was getting worse, but I woke up one morning and had a bad seizure in the middle of the night. Woke up and half my body was dead. I was bodybuilding at the time, so it was all that, mind over matter, thinking, okay, you can bench more if you just push harder. And so I was kind of thinking the same thing with, with half of my body not working. I woke up and I was trying to get out of bed, and I'm just thinking, man, I have just got to push harder. I don't know what the heck is going on. Can't get my arm to move, can't get my leg to move. Fell out of bed and drugged myself to the kitchen. And I'd leave my cell phone plugged in the kitchen so that I could, just not be distracted with all the business calls at night and stuff. And so I got in there and called my mom. She lived about 5.5 hours away. And so as I was trying to tell her, hey, I think I got too low, I had a seizure, and now half of my body doesn't work. When I started talking to her, I said, hey, chicken, waffle, pituitary, phone charger. I'm like, what the heck? And so I tried to say something else, and it was just these random words that didn't make any sense. And so my mom finally called the paramedics when she realized that I couldn't communicate. They showed up, and I did the same thing, trying to tell them, hey, I'm diabetic. I've had a seizure here. Something's wrong. And the paramedic, couldn't understand what I was saying. And he tells the other guy that I had a stroke. Thought I had a TIA stroke. And so I'm just getting furious, thinking, I didn't have a stroke, you idiot. My sugar's too low. I just need some sugar. So I tested, my sugar is good. And they ended up hauling me to the hospital, and I was diagnosed with a malignant glioblastoma brain tumor. So my parents came up they were living in New Mexico at the time, and they came up to visit and see me in the hospital there. And I remember one of the lead oncologist put his hand on my mom's shoulder and said, I wish I had better news. He's got 60 to 90 days to live. And, so as they're talking, I still can't communicate. But as they're talking, he's telling her, you need to make some memories, take him to Disneyland, do something. There's zero chance of survival with this type of tumor as far as it's gone. So he said 60 to 90 days max. May not be able to communicate again. May not, just kind of, I had lost the ability to drive, couldn't live alone, couldn't sleep alone, whatever. And got out there, so we went to Tijuana, Mexico, rather than doing the treatment here in the U.S. And that's kind of a crazy thing too, because at the time, like I said, I owned a cosmetic medical laser franchise and a pharmaceutical company. So we were manufacturing injectable research peptides and had doctors and pharmacists working for me. And here we're going out of the country for treatment because the doctors here had said that American medicine will not fix the cancer. That there's no chance of survival. So.
So that all occurred, and then what followed? So you started trying. Did you start trying some like conventional treatments? Well, I guess there weren't any conventional treatments if they're just saying sort of the Western medicine health model kind of just say we don't have anything to do to help you. Is that?
Yeah. So as that was going on, we were at Swedish Medical Center up in Denver, and it just happened that week they were doing a training, meeting with the top oncologists in the country from pretty much every hospital. So they had dozens and dozens of these top, really great cancer doctors. And so they used my case as a case study and again said, they'll do chemo and radiation and brain surgery, but still no chance of living more than 90 days. So here I am. I believed in the American Medical Association. I mean, the American medical treatments at the time as well. I owned two companies that were doing business, medical business. And so it was pretty crazy thing to go to Tijuana, Mexico. And I thought that was going to be I basically just went because I thought it was going to be basically try to make my mom happy. I figured either way I was going to die. I didn't have much longer to go. So at least going to Mexico was what my mom felt was like was the right thing. So,
and
yeah, it was a kind of a crazy thing, but
yeah. So tell me about, so what, was there an experimental treatment that ended up kind of saving your life that was found in Mexico, or what ended up happening?
So this treatment, the President Reagan, he did the same treatment in Germany years and years before.
So you're talking about the treatment that Reagan had tried and was successful.
Yeah, so there's this clinic that we went to called the Hoxie Biomedical Clinic. And it was they've been around for 50 plus years. And it's not legal in America to cure cancer. You can't claim that you can cure cancer as a doctor in America because it's a massive business. There's too much money to be lost if somebody could cure it. So, we went over there for this treatment that has been going on we met people at this clinic that had been, from all over the world were coming for their 20-year checkup. They'd been diagnosed or treated by American or other doctors and, given same thing, months to live, and they're over there 20 years later doing their follow-up. So it's a pretty neat thing to see that it actually worked. And one of the cool things is, I'm laying around. I'd always been pretty positive and listened to audiobooks and podcasts, and I read 6+ books a month every month, have for years, and it had always been pretty positive. But I kind of just accepted the fact that I was going to die in a short time, and because I was having so many seizures and had lost everything. And my mom had talked about, I got up there, I was sleeping on the living room floor in their 1-bedroom cabin, up 35 miles from the nearest stoplight. And as we're going through that, my mom was saying, why don't you start what kind of a business do you want to do? Do you want to open another, do you want to open a weight loss clinic here, or a pharmaceutical company, or what can you do? And so we decided to open a little cell phone store, and that store kept growing and growing. And so, again, I was doing that more to, I didn't really believe that I was going to make it longer than the 60 to 90 days. But we started the business, just kept working. And I figured if nothing else, maybe I can get this business running and leave something for my parents, by the time I passed away. and that business took off, and we ended up purchasing bestseller.com, purchased the entire company, and built out a company now does 250,000 customers a month. I have 250,000 customers a month hitting the site there, and been a pretty cool journey, I guess you'd say.
What was the recovery process? I mean, did the treatment, was it pretty instantaneous that it worked, or did it just kind of slowly like slow the growth of your tumor? Like how did that actually end up happening?
Yeah, so in Mexico they inject, they call it Laetrile, or it's vitamin B17. So it's basically one molecule from, or amygdalin is another term for it. But they inject this and do chelation therapy and different things. And I went the very first day. I still have a terrible memory, but I had lost probably 9 months of my memory before that. I woke up in the hospital with a girl that I'd been dating. It was there. We'd been dating for 9 months, and I did not remember that I'd ever even talked to her. And so went down that first day after treatment. I, took the cab back to took the cab back to the hotel. And the second day, come back, and I got done, and I was thinking, I'm just going to run back. So I had my laptop in my backpack, and jogging through Mexico, Tijuana, Mexico, there, a mile and a half or so back to the hotel, and instantly had just a really crazy thing as that tumor started shrinking. I hadn't had any more seizures for quite a while, and just memory started coming back. I had just a crazy flood of emotions and stuff. Just a really weird response, I guess you'd say. But yeah, everything, no real side effects, or everything worked pretty good. So, that's been 10 years ago, and I'm still here today. And
That's incredible.
as you can tell, I'm speaking again. So,
So, well, I mean, how was that, like, just psychologically kind of getting that new lease on life? I mean, what was it, a huge relief? Was it, I mean, because it sounded like what you were saying, you were pretty much prepared that this was the end.
yeah, I was. My whole life I've been, just built tons of businesses, and I kind of always, I'm Christian. I believe in Jesus. Believe I'm saved, and so I have I wasn't worried about dying. It was just, my main thing is I didn't want to have a slow, take 2 or 3 months to die, where my parents saw me wasting away and getting, having the typical, you see people die of cancer, losing their hair and losing weight and nauseous and all the crazy stuff. And so my biggest thing is I was hoping that I would get hit by a car or something like that to take me out quick, so it wasn't a painful thing for my family. But yeah, as we went along, it was, I even today, if I walk outside and get struck by lightning, I'm not worried about dying. So
And then,
yeah, it was
yeah. Well, tell me about kind of like, what did anything change kind of going forward? Like, I know we talked a little before we started airing just about your about the peptide business, which I was super interested in. Was that at all inspired from that, from going through that sort of experience? Because like the peptides being this sort of alternative treatment, is there a relation or no?
there's no relation. I actually lost the peptide business because of the brain cancer. Um, so we had, I had befitforfree.com and befitfree.net. We'd launched as a fitness forum years and years earlier, and then ended up with 17,000 plus active members on the forum. This has been before anybody really was using Facebook or anything. MySpace was the cool thing back then, but built this forum. It started taking off pretty good. We ended up having, making connections with pro bodybuilders like Andy Hammond and Phil Heath and Ronnie Coleman and Jake Cutler, these top IFBB pro bodybuilders and stuff. And not so we were manufacturing these injectable research peptides like PEG MGF, IGF-1 long R3, different things that worked similar to growth hormone and different recombinant growth hormone peptides. And so as we're doing that, it was just, we were building this out, and when I got the cancer and all that, it was just couldn't keep that going. I had lost the ability to even remember what the how the business ran or how the to remember to pay the office rent or anything like that. So
I see. So related to the peptides, I know I mentioned this to you as, it's something I'm super interested in and haven't had a guest on the show talk about peptides before. Can you tell me just like a little like, you know, what is a peptide? I mean, and how or why were these bodybuilders so interested in kind of partnering with you guys?
there's peptides. Growth hormone is a peptide. There's all kinds of different peptides that are basically protein chains that do different things in your body. But we were using IGF-1 long R3, insulin-like growth factor 1, the recumbent peptide that extended the half-life of the peptide. So we're doing that with pegylated mechanical growth factor, or PEG-MGF, and that was a big thing for a lot of the bodybuilders and stuff because you inject this stuff and you can have, you do a site-specific injection, and it basically causes similar to a muscular cancer, where you're actually growing new muscle cells. So typically, if you're lifting weights or whatever, you're breaking the fibers down, and then they come back stronger and thicker because with the recovery. But these injectable peptides would actually help you to gain new muscle tissue, new muscle fibers. So a lot of bodybuilders that were willing to do stuff like testosterone and growth hormone injections, those things, would stack these with these other peptides and get just massive growth. You have guys gain 30 pounds a month in, where normally you're gaining, 12 pounds a year or something like that. So
Wow.
you just have guys absolutely explode. And the peptides are also not a traceable, not something that would show up in a drug test. And so we didn't start the company for that, but that ended up being our main business was NFL players and, all kinds of different athletes that made their money by being the biggest, strongest, fastest, leanest guy on the, on the court there or whatever. So,
Right. Right. So these peptides, I mean, this is I guess a bit different than what people like classically think of as like steroids, right? Because that would usually be like testosterone. I mean, do you kind of group this in with that category of steroids or
there's anabolic or androgenic steroids, but a peptide is not it works similar, but it's like years ago they had all the methylated anabolics. So like there was Promagnon is a real popular one that was an orally active anabolic. So basically a steroid, but you could buy it over the counter. And so we manufacture that stuff as an injectable. A lot of different things like that were legal. So that was the big thing where we'd have police officers and firefighters and stuff that would buy this injectable product because it helped them get the results of steroids without risking going to prison over drug charges, whatever. So,
and speaking of the legal status, that's one thing I wanted to ask you about because I know that's another thing we touched on before the show. You were saying how the company had some issues or it was just kind of difficult to navigate around the legal framework. What I mean are these peptides sort of in a gray area as far as like being unregulated or how did that sort of work?
it's been what almost 11 years, maybe 11 years plus since I was in that business. But with the scheduling, with stuff being scheduled as you could have a product. We sold all the peptides for research purposes only. So they'd be manufactured. You could order them legally for anything you wanted to, as long as you didn't inject them in yourself. So people would buy them. I don't care if you're injecting it in an orange or a lab rat or squirting the stuff out in the air. As long as you didn't inject it yourself, you're good to go. And so that was the legal loophole that let us, run the entire clinic and stuff. So we didn't ever give the injections in the office. A customer would come in, you'd measure their height and weight and all the different things, do blood work on them, and kind of as a general health type of thing. So, same thing right now. If you go down, you can go to different clinics here in Colorado and do chelation therapy, which chelation helps fight cancer, but you cannot go to a clinic that offers chelation therapy for cancer treatment because the clinic will get shut down. So you'll go in there, don't even mention cancer or whatever the problem is, because the doctor is not legally allowed to treat you for cancer, but they can do chelation therapy for general health, and a side effect is cancer gets cured. So
Interesting. Yeah, it's crazy the way those sort of loopholes work, but
right.
yeah, I guess just part of the system.
I'm probably the wrong guy to be asking about the peptides and stuff now because it's been so long, and because with the brain cancer, my memory is absolutely terrible. But
Sure. Well, let's switch gears a little bit then. I wanted to ask you about so your the new book, How to Be Successful, Think Like a Leader. I want to hear kind of what was what inspired you to want to write that. I saw in the bio that uh, you had wrote that you'd kind of contacted all these leaders that you had admired and like started asking them questions. Is that so? That was kind of the basis for how the book got started.
yeah, so I actually started because of the memory issues. I bought a domain. I think it was like a $8.99 domain, um, successmotivationinspiration.com, because it was such a ridiculously long URL. It was super cheap. And so I bought that and started using that to record, write notes on every motivational book or inspirational book I was reading. Because my memory was so terrible, I'd get done with the chapter and I couldn't tell you what the chapter was about. So as I was reading, I was basically doing book reviews, and I started going along. And pretty soon, I started contacting these authors. When I ended up with the brain cancer, I figured I had better, I wanted to try to start inspiring and uplifting folks, and also was kind of hoping that I would have something from my parents to look back on, after I passed away, that where they could look back and see some type of a positive thing that I was sharing with the world there. And as that went along, I ended up being able to contact more and more just incredible leaders. One of them was the inventor of the MP3 player. Uh, Eric Payne is a mergers and acquisition specialist. I was able to interview there. Just an incredibly sharp guy. Paul Watson, another friend of mine that he runs a church and he's got his own hospital, and uh, just really incredible people that I wouldn't have had a chance to connect with if I wasn't doing these interviews. So started on almost like a podcast type of an interview, and as I was recording, we ended up turning the interviews into a book here, talking about how these multimillionaire successful guys had become so successful.
So let's talk about, I guess, that answering that specific question. What separates these uber successful people, these leaders, from the rest of the pack?
That's a great question. One of the things that I see a lot, I interviewed everywhere from this preacher that's done absolutely incredible. Jeff Wobig is a Navy SEAL Team sniper. He's SEAL Team 5, SEAL Team 7. He's on Operation Rhino Wars on the Discovery Channel, and just super successful Navy sniper. And then Paul Watson, the preacher, and another guy, K1 Mayo, who's a very successful guy who spent years in prison and you know gang banging and running drugs and doing different stuff, and had turned his life around, becoming a successful entrepreneur now, doing legitimate business. So it was really cool to see some of those different, the different perspectives from different guys who had, the inventor of the MP3 player. There's different guys that had done these crazy things, and to see who had, their views, the similarities and differences on life and success, and what true success is. So there's I, I can't go through all the interviews in the book here, but I would recommend grab a copy. It's $2.99 on Amazon, and we're about to release the audiobook as well. So
Awesome. Well, do you have, are there any like few interviews that you did that really stand out to you that you always kind of like look back on that were, more memorable than the rest?
and I did a whole bunch of interviews. Quite a few of them did not get included in the book, so we just picked out the very top, best advice you can get there. Um, Jeff Wobig is one that I really enjoyed interviewing. He's the Navy SEAL team guy. Just thinking here. My memory, like I said, is absolutely trash after the brain tumor. So I'm looking through as we're going along, but um, yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of them. There's 27 chapters, and I interviewed probably 12, 15 different guys in there are successful people that I interviewed, and then other ones are stories of, you just success type of motivational stories in between. So
And did this like just doing all of these interviews like obviously helped you a lot in terms of being able to put this book together? But did it change anything? Because you were already a business guy before this, but kind of then you're learning from all of these super top experts. Did it change anything about the way that you conducted yourself or operated any of your businesses?
man, absolutely, that's another great question. So one of the biggest things that I saw is every one of these guys, no matter what happened to them in life, you have one of there's two chapters in a row here that the first guy. So I talk about two different guys. The first guy, the chapter is called "Don't Miss Your Orange Creamsicle," like the popsicle, and that's talking about a homeless guy that I had drove by in my, I drove by and was going to give him, figure I was going to run to the house, grab a, sparkling V8 energy drink and a popsicle and some snacks and stuff. And as I was trying to bring him back, I was in I was driving a Jaguar at the time, pretty nice vehicle there. And so he flipped me off and screamed at me, "Rich effing prick." And so, rather than get out and argue with him or whatever, I figured I'd drive home, bring him some snacks. Maybe we could sit down and have a conversation there and try to see why he hated the rich guy in the Jaguar. And as I pulled up, he was screaming at another lady in a beautiful white car, and same thing, trying to start a fight. So I'm going, okay, this is probably not the best thing. I was trying to bring the guy some snacks and improve his life rather than, have him attack me and try to, have to hurt him or something. And so that was talking about this guy missed his opportunity to not only have, a nice bunch of snacks and a cold popsicle and a cold drink and stuff, but he also missed the ability to, maybe make a connection where he could have ended up with a job. I was running 3 retail stores at the time, and so yeah, that was a good combination of that, and then the very next chapter. I guess there was a couple of other chapters later, but the next another homeless guy that I talked to was I had met him. When I met him, he was driving a twin turbo Ferrari, this bright yellow, just incredible Ferrari, and so I started asking him this, a bunch of questions here, kind of what he did for a living and how he started his business. And he was telling me his story about how he had lost everything, went bankrupt, lost his house, his wife left him, he was sleeping in the park, and so his next, his first night sleeping on the park bench, he decided he's got to do something with his life, and went and he got went to started applying for jobs at construction sites, and ended up now he owns a major truss company building roofing trusses, and driving the Ferrari, and has done really well. So a lot of good combination or um, you know contrasting stories there, where you can see the life choices of one versus the other has them in a completely different situation.
Got it. Back to that the point about that guy who's I guess sort of yelling and kind of just out of control. Is that sort of a big thing? I was just thinking about just in terms of business. I mean, I would think just being able to really regulate your emotions and being able to stay calm in the sort of like high pressured, business negotiation sort of environment. Is that a big thing for you?
Uh, I, I've always been. I guess it took a long time for me to be. I've always been a real strong leader to a detriment, where I had especially with having the supplement company, and you got 15, 20, 30 guys walking around in the t-shirts that are sponsored, got your logo on it, and you snap and, hey, we're going to sit over here, and the whole cruise follows you around. Um, that was a big learning process there, going from being that type of leader with that following stuff, to understanding that as soon as I lost everything and ended up bankrupt and um, the seizures and couldn't communicate and stuff, and losing that entire following, the entire crowd that I thought, when you're in that position with the money or whatever kind of power, it's real easy to think that people love you for you, and then when you lose everything overnight, that was a really good lesson to go, okay, you go bankrupt or you lose you end up with brain cancer or you start having seizures or whatever, and just kind of a unique position to be in. I wouldn't trade it, but it's a neat thing to be able to understand. People, people connect with you in friendships or whatever because of what they can get out of the relationship, and that's just human nature. We do what's best for us. So,
yeah, no, that's something I've talked to a lot of friends recently about that exact idea of just it. I mean, that's something you experienced firsthand of just like a lot of people that you thought were like friends or good business partners, like just falling away when either when things kind of collapsed.
yeah. So I was kind of a like I said, when I was pretty young, making really good money, and sponsoring events at the Denver Coliseum, and we'd have a rent out a nightclub, and it was a private after party after the bodybuilding show or the MMA fight or whatever. So I could send out a mass text message to 600 people on my phone and say, "Hey, we've got free tickets. Come, let's go hang out at the at the Denver Coliseum here. Just wear your Be Fit for Free shirt." So everybody'd show up in their t-shirt and have all these bodybuilders following me around and stuff, and then it was kind of a crazy thing to realize that as soon as the free tickets and the free sporting events, the free nightclub stuff and all that cut off, out of 600 friends, I had maybe half a dozen. Probably 5 people showed up at the hospital to visit me, and not one showed up to help me move or help us load the trailer or whatever to get out of town. So, like I said, it's really a blessing to. It was depressing at first, going, man, I thought all these people loved me. I thought I had all these friends, and come to find out it was just the money. But also looking back at that was the personality of, I wasn't acting like a friend. I was, snappy guys were sitting over here, and I was the leader, but it wasn't. They weren't leading. They weren't following because of the great personality, I guess you'd say. So,
right.
Good thing. Yeah. You got to connect with people and actually care about what they're doing and what they're feeling and stuff, and not just be handing out free tickets or free.
Was that something then that you started like kind of developing within your employees like later on? That's
Absolutely,
sort of like,
yeah.
what was that process? I mean, did you have anyone kind of coach you on doing that, or was it just kind of like a natural, like you just saw that was something that you needed to build those kind of real relationships with your employees like over time?
One of the books that I read a lot was How to Be Success, or it was How to Win Friends and Influence People. And
Yep. Dale
probably read
Carnegie.
that 2 dozen times, and as I'd say probably the books and podcasts, and then interviewing these other leaders was probably the biggest thing to see, kind of help me shape my personal, what do you say, to be able to generate better relationships and stuff.
Sure.
And I apologize if I go off on a tangent, or if I forget what the question was. Like I said, my memory is terrible from the brain cancer. So,
Oh, no worries. So I guess switching gears again a bit. Let's talk about before we started airing, you were saying how you kind of you closed kind of the in-person stores that you guys were operating, and now you're kind of going all in with it sort of being a sort of influencer kind of media figure. Is that, I don't know, is that an accurate, how do you describe like your current, like what you're currently doing?
that's actually because of guys like you with the podcasts and the, Amazon TV and different channels I'm on and stuff now. Um, that whole thing has been, it wasn't really a decision to become an influencer. Um, that's such a weird term as well. I always
It
picture the
is.
guy with the man bun at Starbucks with too tight of pants on. um, but no, I'd say that started happening as I was building out the following on the books and stuff. I had 150,000 plus followers on the Amazon author profile, and um, you know, writing a couple bestseller books and stuff. So a lot of that happened because of the growth of the books and the other podcasts and stuff that I was doing there. Uh, like for example, Amazon contacted me to make me an influencer. They call it an actual Amazon influencer. They give you your own little storefront, and you can, anytime somebody clicks the link, it's kind of like an affiliate program. So a lot of that, when I set up my Amazon influencer store, the I had other podcast hosts ask me, "Wow, how did you do that?" I've applied. I'm trying to get set it up. How did you become an influencer? Or how did you, how did you apply, or how did you speed up the process, or whatever? And I'm like, I have no clue. They reached out to me. It was just because of the number of book sales. So
Got it. So tell me about like the what sort of like going on other people's shows, or like what sort of interests you the most in terms of like your current role? Because it seems like with doing this sort of stuff, it's like you're doing books, you're going on podcasts, you're interviewing people. What's sort of your favorite kind of activity or role to play?
so I enjoy being a guest. I love answering these questions and just hearing all the cool perspectives and the different questions that folks have got. Uh, but I really enjoy inviting other folks on my, to go live on the Facebook profile or Instagram or Twitter or whatever, different live platforms we're on. And probably my favorite thing right now, it's not as profitable as, you know, app development and some of the different stuff that I'd done in the past, or the pharmaceutical company and those, but really enjoyable just being able to get where I'm constantly connecting, either doing consulting or, asking these other leaders what they've done to become successful, and kind of, it's just been a really great thing to keep my outlook positive and also learn a whole bunch of new things to keep growing my, the podcast and the Amazon Fire TV channel and the different things like that. So
It's you're in a really interesting position, because it's like it sounds like, from doing all these interviews and just being a businessman yourself, you kind of, were looking up, or looking at all these people trying to figure out, how to become a better leader yourself. But now, kind of with your own reach, it's you probably, I assume, have a lot of people looking at you as, figuring out how to be a better leader in their own lives, right?
yeah, and I do paid consulting as well for people growing. I've got one of my Facebook groups is 312,000 active members now. Um, so yeah, it's been kind of a cool thing to switch roles there. Going from owning the companies, having all the money coming in, and you guys following your own, and then losing everything and being at the very bottom of the barrel, sleeping on my parents' floor in the middle of nowhere, and couldn't drive myself to the grocery store if I wanted to because I was, with the seizures and everything. And then coming back again now to be where people are inviting me on, different shows and podcasts and stuff like that. And I flew out to Vegas and spoke at Caesar's Palace, did a virtual conference a couple weeks ago here in India. So pretty neat to have, thousands of people go from thousands of people following you because of the money to losing everything. And then now people, the same thing, growing that following again, but it's not because of because I'm showing off flashy cars or, hosting events at the Denver Coliseum. It's they're reading my books, and I just say a whole lot better lifestyle now to be actually giving back something positive to the world instead of just here's some free sporting tickets or whatever.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What are you I know we're coming up onto the end of the show right now, but I want to hear kind of what's what are you hoping to do going forward? Is the plan to keep going with more books, more writing? What do you see, where do you see this going?
Yeah, so I'm currently just starting on a book for personal branding. Writing a book on personal branding. I just did my fourth book here, and I've had three of the four books have been bestseller, hit bestseller status, and so the books are doing well. And we're actually, I right now, that I've got the suit on top, and I'm wearing a pair of shredded old pants here that are got paint and drywall all over them. We're building out a new podcast and video studio across town here with a full professional green room studio, and now that we're on Amazon Fire TV and things like that, it's going to be that'll be more of the focus, is just keep focusing on giving back, doing something for the world that you can uplift and inspire and motivate. And just like the books, you can sell books for pretty much whatever you want on Amazon. I've got them at the bottom. $2.99 is the least you can charge for to earn the top commission level. And so just trying to make that knowledge and stuff accessible to everybody that I possibly can. So
Love it. Awesome. Well, Curtis, I really enjoyed having you on the show today. I really enjoyed our discussion. If people want to find out more about your work or find your books, where would you direct them to?
So the easiest one, I've got a short URL, mcm.team. So no www, no .com, it's just mcm.team. Or you can also connect with me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. mcm.team links to all of those different profiles. But yeah, jump on, like the Facebook page, and send me a message. I'll talk with you.
Great. And for those of you guys who enjoyed the show, go ahead and like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're Roscoe's Wetsuit Neuro. And you can also find audio versions of the podcast available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and just about anywhere else that audio podcasts are available. Curtis, again, I wanted to really thank you for coming on the show. It was an honor to have you as a guest today.
Absolutely. Hey, and one other thing there, if you guys want to, anybody that's watching this right now on Facebook, or, if you go to the Success, Motivation, and Inspiration page or the M. Curtis McCoy page, you will be able to click the link to Roscoe's Wetsuit Podcast Facebook page. So if you guys are watching this now on one of these channels, click that link and be sure to give him a like on his Facebook page.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Curtis.
Yeah, appreciate it, Toby. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely.